How's everyone doing? We've been working on the Cletrac F project again, and we got the engine back from the machine shop about 3 weeks ago, and RCS Diesel Services up in Ludlow, Mass. Did the machining work on it. A friend of mine, Mike, that works there, and we took it up there with the plans of just putting in new valve inserts, because the valves were sunk into the head quite a bit. And so he did that, proceeded to do that. He decked the top of the block, and he also surfaced the head. That cleaned up nice. And after he got that done, he cleaned the block up, and I asked him to hone out the cylinders. And when he was honing the cylinders, he heard a funny noise he didn't like, and it turns out there was crack going up and down the cylinder wall on 2 of the cylinders. So at that point he called me. He says, "Don't worry, I already got sleeves on order." We had to do it. So he bored it out, put the sleeves in. I can attach some pictures of the sleeves being inserted at the machine shop. And then sized matched the sleeves to the pistons, the original pistons that I have, and put her all back together. So it's really in good shape now. Next is I can start doing the reassembly. I got to order a set of rings for it. The next big hurdle that I have is one of the number 2 connecting rod Babbitt bearing was destroyed. So I don't have one. I don't have a replacement. I'm looking for another complete rod, because they pour the Babbitt right into it, the cap and the rod. I got an example here to show you. So either I'm going to have a new Babbitt poured for that 1 cylinder, number 2 cylinder, or I'm on the hunt for another connecting rod to put it back together. So that's the next biggest thing that I have going on the engine. I can reassemble it, put the crankshaft in, check the tolerances, and do all that. Put all the valves. I got 4 new valves. I was able to regrind 4 of them, so I should be good on the valves. So that's the update on the engine. I'll turn the engine over here, and we'll show you the bottom side of it. So here we got the crankshaft, and the crankshaft was taken up there with the engine block to the machine shop, and it was polished, and it came out decent. It cleaned up pretty good. A couple lines in a couple of the journals, but for an engine that turns such low RPMs, it's going to be just fine. And all the main bearings are in decent shape. It's just 1 rod bearing that I have the issue with right now. So next would be to get this in here and shim it up correctly, and check the tolerances on it. Since it is a Babbitt bearing, typically you set them a little tight, and you break the engine in that way. They break in tight to begin with, and they'll start to loosen up as you run it some. So I don't have a lot of experience with that, but my brother and my father have put some Fordson engines together that were Babbitt, and had to belt them up to something to break them in for 15-20 minutes to keep them turning, and then was able to start them up fairly easily. Camshaft, I have it setting in here. It's in decent shape. No rust on any of the lobes, no flat spots or anything. I do have to work on the one over here. The governor needs some work. There's a lot of play in the pins that go through the governor, and I can see that had failed when I took it apart. The inner part of the governor had slipped out, and one of these was out on the outside where it shouldn't be. So I'm gonna have to address that and take care of the wear in there. So that's where we're at on the engine. I'll move on and show you some other projects with this tractor that we're working on. So just quickly, I wanted to show you the pistons. These are the ones that came out of it. They are the machine. It was bored out at one time, so these are oversized pistons. And I just got to figure out the exact size of the rings and get some rings ordered for it. So that's what we got there. And I ordered 4 brand new valves. I was able to get them through Landis Zimmerman. So I got 4 brand new ones, and then I got 4 that I took down to the valve grinder and was able to clean up, and got a good surface there, and retouched up the ends on them. And it does have adjustable lifters, so there's an adjuster here on the top, so you can adjust them. Don't have to grind the bottoms to make them fit. You can just adjust the adjustment there. And I surfaced each one of the tops of the adjusters because there was an impression there from the valve. So those have all been surfaced on all the lifters. So that should take care of the valve train. And the pistons are in pretty decent shape. So that's where we're at. So we got a little project today. This is the original clutch from the Cletrac Model F. And when we were taking the engine and separating it from the transmission, this got stuck on the shaft here and broke it. So I attempted to braze it back together, which we did successfully, but in doing so, we ended up warping the surface of the clutch. So the way this clutch works is it goes into the clutch housing with a pressure plate and the flywheel, and it has 2 floating discs that just float by themselves on either side of the clutch disc. So what I'm doing is I found another clutch disc that had the right size spline. I took the material off of it, and I'm going to attempt now to cut it down to the same diameter as the original clutch, because it's a little bit bigger around. And then when I cut it down to the right diameter, I'm going to take it to a shop that can put material back on it, and I'm going to make it into an actual clutch disc with the material on it instead of the floating pieces, and hopefully that will work. So we're going to try with this little jig I made up to plasma cut this out and make it true and round.
Came out pretty good.
Yeah, we just got to clean it up a little bit. I can probably do that, keeping it on here and spinning it with a grinder. So this is the clutch setup here for the Cletrac F. This disc here has had new material applied to it, and this clutch does run in oil, so it had to be material that could run in oil, submerged in oil. So this disc here, I don't know what it fit. I'm gonna try to find out. And I took it to a company called All Friction, and they put the material on it for me. So it fits on the spline, and the plan is that I hope this works just fine. This clutch here, you see it doesn't have the material on it. There was 2 pieces of floating material inside here, one on each side of it, and the clutch basically floated in between that material. So this should work technically the same way, because it's got a surface in here that this clutch can ride on, and then there's like the pressure plate has a plate that is allowed to move inside here, and there's an adjustment here for the clutch itself. So I will have some adjustment, and I'm hoping it works just fine. So that's the clutch setup, hopefully back together and working. See, you can see the difference in the thickness here, but this had material that floated on both sides that came out to the same thickness as what we have here with this bonded to it. So that's what we've come up with, and it's kind of an interesting clutch. I know that there was some other manufacturers of that time frame that used a clutch like this. All right, so that's the clutch. Okay, so on the transmission on this Cletrac, it has its own set of challenges. This tractor definitely has seen a lot of use. When I took it apart, this is one of the axle shafts. This is actually a good one. I got the other one at a machine shop, or a friend of mine's machine shop, and we ended up having to weld up right here where the bearing slides on, and I'm having it turned back down to the proper size because it was shot. The bearing went bad and it was really, really loose, and I'm surprised it didn't hurt anything internally. So that's being worked on now. And some of the other stuff in this transmission, there's a shaft. Here's the bushing up top that I'm putting in. So there's a 3/4 inch shaft that goes down all the way to the bottom, and that shaft engages the transmission for forward and reverse. And what it does is it moves these gears right here back and forth. One engages forward, one engages reverse. So that shaft was really shot. It's actually the same. You use the shaft, you use the crank that you use to start the tractor to put in here to shift it forward and reverse. And it had about a 1/4 inch play back and forth slop in that. So I've drilled it oversized, and I'm about to ream it out so that this bushing will fit in, and I'm putting a brand new 3/4 inch shaft in there. Got the bearings for the inside of the transmission. This one here is for the axle shaft itself, and you can see where there's a cutout in here. This is considered a heavy duty bearing, and because it has an extra ball that they put in them. But the bearing is shot. All the bearings are shot. They're really bad. So what I did is I went and I have all new bearings right now for it. These are not super heavy duty. They're standard duty bearings. And for what we're going to do with the tractor, restoration purposes and the driving and stuff that we're going to do with it, they'll be fine. So that will be next part of the reassembly, is we'll put that all together. I need to clean inside of this thing out really good. I got to finish this bushing up here that's going in. Right here is the differential cluster that slides into the rear end housing, and this is the brake bands, and as you can see, they're in really good shape. The brake bands on this are like in perfect condition, so there's nothing I got to do there. This is the drum that the band goes on. They're almost shiny. A little bit of cleaning up there. They slide on here, and there's your drum right there. So how this differential works is it basically slows down one side, and the other side speeds up, and that creates your steering of the tracks. So in the way it's on an eccentric, the steering wheel runs an eccentric that pushes down one side or the other on a rod that goes in right here, and that clamps the brake down. See how it clamps the brake? And that locks up your drum, or slows down your drum on one side, and that is the steering. So that is a summary of everything we got going on with the Cletrac F. We have not done too many videos, but I figured I wanted to wait till we had some content to show you, and we'll see how quickly we get it back together. We're not in a rush to complete this project, want it done right. One of the other things that I just wanted to put out there is, haven't decided whether we're going to leave this thing original and not paint it. So leave that in the comments. Let me know what you think, because it hasn't been decided yet. I might just clean everything up really good and leave it in rust. There is some paint here and there on it. It's not original paint that we've been finding on it, but be interested to see what people say about it. It will be internally, this thing will be rebuilt, but we might not paint the outside of it. So we'll see. Let me know. Thank you.